What gives somebody the strength to leave a steady paycheck and go and try and make it on their own? Today, we get into the head of one of the most successful brokers in self-storage. Joining me on the Stories Behind the Door podcast is the president of the Bledsoe Group of Marcus and Millichap, Kevin Bledsoe. Excited to be live with this guy this morning. I knew he was popular in self-storage. I didn't know quite how popular. We're going to hop right into it with Kevin Bledsoe in a second. Before I do that, I'm going to give a shout out to my friends at Kiwi 2 Construction, Wayne Woosley and his crew, 30 plus years of providing steel structures in the self-storage space, now in boat and RV and small bay industrial flex as well. You can check them out at kiwiconstruction.com. Coming back to the important part of this one here, Kevin, thank you. First of all, thanks so much for making some time. I know we had to reschedule earlier this week and appreciate you plowing through and coming on and joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Thaddeus. Thank you. Sorry, my voice, I didn't have a voice earlier this week. Too much talking on the phone, I guess. But no, it's great to be here. Excited to be on the show with you.
Dangers of being a broker, right? Too many phone calls?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Listen, I'm really excited. I got a lot of stuff to cover with you. And so to me, so apropos of what's going on right now in the industry and things that you're seeing firsthand, I want to really get your insight in. But this podcast always starts with the same question. I know you've watched a couple of episodes, so it shouldn't be a big surprise. I always love to hear the journey because storage is so unique. It's such a niche. It's not something most people ever set out to get into. How did Kevin Bledsoe find himself in this industry?
You know, that is really, really interesting. Back in 2004, wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? So found a ad on monster.com for a district manager trainee in the self-storage industry, applied for it. I think I was only one of 3 people that applied for it. I got the job, and the rest is sort of history. I spent about a decade in operations for several different companies. Had some really great mentors along the way. Worked PFG Capital and Simply Self Storage with Kurt O'Brien and Kyle Schmutzler and Dan Digert, Mike Rode, and Scott Forey over at PFG Capital. And then went on to had an opportunity to work with Alyssa Quill and Jay Hoke to start SAM, Storage Asset Management. And like, what an awesome opportunity that was. I learned so much from them. Alyssa is absolutely amazing, and Jay Hoke is amazing as well. Just learned a ton from them. And, after a decade in operations, managing a little over 100 self-storage properties, was the director of operations by the time I left SAM. And boy, have they grown. I think Alyssa and I always joke. I said we were probably around 60 to 70 properties when I left. And after I left, she shot up to about 600 to 700. So I think maybe I was holding her back in life. Yeah. So no, she's a fantastic person, great leader. I learned a ton from her. And then went to brokerage in 2015 with John Gilliland at Investment Real Estate. John, of course, is the GOAT. He's the man. He has taught me so much in brokerage, and owe a lot of my career to him and my start in the brokerage field. So learned a ton from John, and then in around 2020, 21, Marcus and Millichap gave me a ring, and I really wanted to go start my own business and be my own business owner. So came over to Marcus and Millichap and started his team. It's been a great ride so far. So it's hard to believe I'm getting ready to start my 22nd year in the industry. My son was about to be born when I started, and now he's in college and told me he wants to come join our brokerage team when he's done, which is like completely full circle, which is pretty cool.
There's so many questions that come out of this. I want to talk about the mentality a little bit of your journey. I want to talk about your son because that's very cool. You know how important family is to me. So we'll go down that road. I want to circle back a little bit to getting started in operations. And now as a broker, how important has that been for you in your brokerage business to have that background of starting out on the operational side?
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's the part that's really interesting about it is, we see more business financials than probably, majority of the world, right? It's always amazing that people hand us their financials, right? But they hand it to us because we prove that we add some value to them. And, that the value that we add coming from the operations world is you can look over a profit and loss statement. You can look at someone's balance sheet. You can look at their management software, their revenue management, and having managed 100 self-storage properties and handled a lot of revenue management, you can look at the financials really fast, and you can pick things out quick, right? You can pick out oh, hey, you're not raising rates fast enough, or maybe your rental rates are too high. There's new competition coming into the market. You have an opportunity to do some discounting and take that occupancy that's now dwindled from 90% because four new properties got built down the street, from 75% back up to 90%. So it's really interesting. I love the fact that we can look at I can look at financials pretty quickly, and I can make a decision real fast. Like, hey, there's about $500,000 opportunity here for you to raise value. Let me show you how to do that. I'm not going to bake the cake for you, but I'll give you the ingredients.
It always blows me away having gotten into self storage late in life and commercial real estate for that matter. I mean, you talked about $500,000. At a five cap, that's really $25,000. If you can trim $25,000 of expenses off of somebody's facility or add 25,000 or some combination thereof of revenue, those little tweaks make a massive difference on the back end for a sale.
Yeah, I love the aha moment, right? It's the aha moment where you're sitting in front of an owner and they may have owned that property for 10 years, they may have owned it for 5, they may have owned it for 20 or 30. And you sit down with them, you're like, "Hey, look, here's some things you can do that are really easy, right? And like this is what it's going to do to your value." And you kind of look across the table and you go, for every, $1,000 of additional revenue that you generate or expenses that you reduce, here's what it does to your valuation. And you could just see their eyes light up and go, "Wow, why didn't we have you come do this a long time ago?" And I'm like, yeah, that's why I've called you 20 times in the last 5 years, right? 'Cause I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to help you out. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to hurt you. Like, we can still be friends if you don't want to sell your property. It's fine. But, I'm just here to help you out.
You keep opening up more questions. You brought up this development question, and of course, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. How challenging has it been for you as a broker with the amount of development that's been happening? Obviously, you get into brokerage in 2015, 18, 19, we saw a ton of new product. 23, 24, two of the biggest years ever. 23, I think, was a record. 24 close on its heels. How is that challenging you on the sales side?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and I feel bad for the existing owners at times, when they're in a market that they've been in for a while, and there's a whole bunch of new competition comes in, and sometimes those developments probably just shouldn't get built. Maybe there wasn't enough due diligence done, or the feasibility studies, um, maybe didn't tell the whole story. So it's hard. I feel bad for people that have worked their entire lives and own a business and are just basically getting to their golden years and trying to retire, right? And then all of a sudden occupancy dips and they lose $1 million of value. So it's hard. But that's where the operations experience comes in. That's where we have to have some tough conversations with owners and say, listen, I know your property 3 years ago post COVID was worth $8 million, and today I'm telling you it's worth 6.5 million. But listen, this isn't the end of the road. We're going to figure out how to partner with you here to get you through this, right? And how to lift that value a little bit more. So definitely tough conversations, but it's not the end all be all. There are solutions and there are ways with some expertise, that we can help people do a little bit better.
Interesting you brought up this idea of 8 million in 2022, 6.5 million in 2025. I want to go down that road a little bit because it seemed like transaction velocity from my viewpoint stalled a little bit over the course of the last couple of years. And some of that was that it's got to be hard as an owner when someone comes to you in 2021, 2022 during the boom and says, hey, this is what your product's worth. And now it's worth, maybe 20% less than that. Are you starting to see some of that bid ask spread disappear?
Yeah, we are, naturally with interest rates coming down, that is certainly helping, close that gap a little bit. I think over the last couple years, we really put a lot of time and attention into finding creative ways to sell deals, right? Some seller financing options. How can we roll, some capital into a 1031, or roll it into a Delaware statutory trust or something like that? So we found ways around it to successfully still sell properties. But it's been really hard. It's been really difficult. It's not easy. I know every broker out there has had some struggles over the last few years, right? We went from the heydays of 21, 22, which I wasn't in brokerage at that point. I came in August of 22 to start this team, right as interest rates were going through the roof. We took 10 listings in the first 30 days, sold one.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
this is tough. This is tough.
I'm interested to go back a little bit, and you want to talk about the journey for you and about the people. One of the things that stood out to me about you talking about your journey in storage is you were mentioning the John Gillilands and the Alyssa Quills and other folks that you've been lucky enough to be around. I was 48 years old when I got into storage, and I had never seen anything in my adult career, anything remotely like the people that are in this industry. What has it been like for you to have those people along the journey that have been able to teach and mentor and support you in these different aspects of your career?
Yeah, I think what's really cool is that, I had a chance to be around some really, really, really smart people, right? People way smarter than me. And they were kind enough to take their time out of their lives to mentor me, right? And teach me all the things that I know today, right? I didn't learn any of this stuff on my own for the most part, right? Everyone taught this stuff to me, and hopefully I learned it and maybe like took it to the next level a little bit. Um, so it's been I can't thank those people enough, right? Like they really from day one, my first job on day one was learning how to install a gate controller and a keypad, right? In January in York, Pennsylvania with snow everywhere. Like I did truly learn, they told me on my first day, like bring Carhartts with you, right? It's gonna be cold out. I said, well,
Yeah.
what are we what are we doing? I used to, do roofing in college, right? Am I going back there again? Um, so no, it's been a really cool journey. I've learned from like how to rent a storage unit, right? How to rent a Penske or U-Haul truck. Um, and it was those small little less I've had to, go in and fix properties that weren't running properly. I can't tell you how many self-storage units I swept and how many, disc locks I've cut off units for auctions and it's countless. It's thousands and thousands of units. But it was all these little lessons along the way that have gotten me to where I am today. And it gives me the opportunity. I kind of feel like the old guy now in the group, right? Like get off my lawn kind of thing. And I have some junior agents with me who are in their 20s and 30s. And I laugh all the time. I'm like, you guys don't know how many storage units I swept to get here, right? I wish I went into brokerage, when I was 23 or 24. It's tough, right? Like I started out making, $30,000 a year in this industry, right? So I truly, truly, truly started from the bottom. So very humble beginnings, but happy to be here, right? Happy that everyone's given me an opportunity along the way, and I've worked really hard to be here.
I'm interested to know how much confidence that gives you at now, right? Because brokerage is hard. You're never the only person going after somebody to try and represent their listing, right? That's a beautiful thing to think might happen, but it's a very rare occurrence. How much confidence does Kevin Bledsoe have going and having those conversations with people just because of the depth of things you've done in the space?
It is super helpful. We're not competing against other brokers all the time. Our biggest competition are buyers, right? The buyers that have gotten very, very aggressive over the years, and they've learned what the brokers have learned, right? You got to make a lot of calls. You got to make a lot of calls. Gotta shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies. That's how you get here. That's how you get deals done and find opportunities. So yeah, it's hard, but when you can walk in the door, we gotta build value, right? Because we got 30 to 40 buyers calling owners every single month. And a lot of times sellers say to us, "Well, Kevin, why should I work with you?" Like, they're calling me. And and a lot of times, the response is like, "Listen, here's the expertise I bring to the table. Here's what I've done. Um, we have the best database of buyers in the country. We have some of the best relationships in the country. We know the biggest operators, the best private equity groups, the best regional buyers, the best local buyers. We know that, and we know who transacts and how they transact. Um, and it's our jobs to get you the best price, right? So let me use all my expertise over the years, all the stuff I've done over the last 21 years in this industry to bring the best offers to you. I promise you, I will pay for my commission. I will get you the best price possible. And I would be highly surprised if I didn't get you 15 to 20% more than what you're gonna get from a buyer direct. So, that's the pitch and I believe it. I mean, and we prove it time and time again. And there was a lot of great brokers in this industry, right? I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people with a lot of experience. They're really exceptional in what they do. But I think we're really good too. And I think that, we compete with the best of the best. And I think we are the best of the best.
Well, if your respect that I've seen in the industry as I've been talking about this podcast episode coming up is any indication, there's a whole bunch of people out there that have a ton of respect for you. I want to talk about, you mentioned buyers list, right? I think it's for me what I'm seeing, and I'm going to let you say it out of your mouth. I'm not going to tell you, but in the time you've been a brokerage, I know it hasn't been a ton of time, but you were also with John Gilliland and you were on the investment side of it. What have you seen in terms of who's buying assets in this in storage, and who's the typical buyer now versus maybe 2015 when you first started getting in on the investment side?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Over the last 11 years on the brokerage side of the business, when I started in 15, it was very much so like smaller regional buyers. That's who sort of dominated this asset class. It was the owner that had 2 or 3 properties and they were adding, a third or a fourth. It was the smaller investor that owned multifamily or owned some other asset class and heard self-storage was really great, so they built one. So it's gone from, sort of the outcast of commercial real estate to this thing that everyone's like, this is amazing. Like this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And now, self storage, though it's still a small asset class, where there is a lot of focus put on what we do for a living and on what we sell. So it's been really interesting to see it go from like smaller buyers to like these private equity groups that are now jumping in the pool. And they're not. They used to just jump into the deep end of the pool at top 50 MSAs. Now it's top 100, top 150. There's a different private equity group for every single property type in the self storage industry. So now, we're seeing that this smaller inventory, like some of the smaller properties, 20, 30, 40,000 square feet, roll up to small private equity groups. And
Yeah.
it's become much more sophisticated. So, over the last 11 years, we saw, I think that this really kicked off with like, Prime Group and Bob Mosher, right? Um,
Yeah.
Bob took his brokerage experience, um, and he parlayed it into investments, right? And then he became very aggressive on the investment side of the business. And kudos to Bob. He figured it out before everybody else did. He's a smart guy. I know Bob. I know Bob well, and really good guy. But now everyone's sort of copycat what Bob did, right? So he was kind of the original. And we saw Bob chasing down deals with brokers, and now everyone's kind of trying to do that, right? And it's sort of our jobs to, let the seller know, like, hey, do you have a good offer on the table, or is there maybe a better offer out there, and you should work with us? And there's plenty of times that we see sellers get offers and we go, I would take that offer.
And
That's
yeah, good. You don't need a
yeah,
broker. Take that instantly.
no, you're good.
By the way, you just made me feel so much better because you confirmed my suspicion, which I've said a lot. And it's, anybody that follows me on the other podcast I do or here, the velocity of consolidation in the industry is, because I got into it in 2021 and I can remember having to sit down lunch with the guy who eventually hired me. And he's like, hey, this is still a mom and pop business. There's still a lot of room for the smaller guy to come in and be successful. Fast forward 4 years and a couple of months. And I'm like, is it really a mom and pop business still? Is there really an avenue? And so I guess I'm going to ask you that question as a broker. Is there still space in this industry for somebody like you mentioned before, somebody who maybe was in multifamily and they're looking for, can somebody new come in and carve out a significant portfolio of assets in this space anymore?
The answer to that's yes. There is. There's still lots of opportunity out there. Is it dwindling? Yeah, it's dwindling, but it's top 50 MSAs. That's where the REITs are going to play, right? That's where CubeSmart, Public Storage, Extra Space. That's sort of their playground. They're kind of moved into the suburbs now a little bit more too. Um, but there's still so many opportunities out there that investors can jump into to find deals. I mean, if I literally went through the 160 to 180 valuations we've done this year, I would very easily tell you. I mean, we valued $1 billion of self storage this year, you know, um, and I can tell you 25 to 35% of those deals that we valued are great opportunities for investors that are never going to sell to a private equity group or are never going to sell to a REIT. They just don't check the boxes, but it's still really great investments that people should be looking at and people should be investing in.
What is it about those investments that makes it not right for a REIT that maybe a smaller investor can take advantage of as they're talking to you or looking for a property?
Yeah, so the properties and the surrounding market really has to check boxes for a lot of investment groups. The investment groups or the private equity groups, they're driven by their investors and what the investors want. So you know, w- I'm in the Philadelphia sort of Baltimore markets. It's kind of where we, sort of live and work as a team. And in those markets, you know, we get out of Baltimore, we get out of DC, we get out of Philadelphia, and there are still there's all kinds of properties there. Now, you may not buy something in Philadelphia that's 75,000 square feet on Main and Main. That's going to get gobbled up by a pretty big investment group or a REIT. But if you get out to more of the secondary and some, tertiary markets, get out to maybe central Pennsylvania or, a little south of northern Delaware, you're getting into markets that are still really solid markets, where there is some population. But population counts are super important for a lot of these investment groups, right? Population counts, um, rate per square foot that they're getting for rental rates, um, the amount of competition, and if while we're on the topic, if you're getting into a secondary, tertiary market, the rental rates typically aren't high enough to satisfy a development pro forma, right? It just doesn't pencil. It just doesn't make sense. You can't build a self-storage property in a market that's getting $12 to $15 a square foot annually. It just doesn't work. So you've also eliminated a lot of your competition. So the stuff that you deal with in Philadelphia or you deal with in Baltimore, you deal in Washington, DC, with all these new competitors coming in, it's not going to happen in those markets, right? If there's 10 properties, there's probably going to be still 10 properties 5 years from now because the rental rates don't make sense to build. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities out there. You just got to go find them.
I love to hear that, and I appreciate your insight greatly and kind of guiding where that conversation's going. It's been a challenge for me to, of course, I'm on the development side. I've never been in the acquisition side, so my knowledge on that side is definitely stunted. But it's nice to know that there's still that opportunity for someone to come in and have an opportunity to make some headway in the space. I want to transition a little bit. Something I've really been wanting to talk to you about because one of the things that and we've talked offline about your trajectory. You were kind enough to come up and take me to lunch one day and had a great time kind of getting to know each other a little bit. But I'm always interested in the mindset, right? Because you had this job with John Gilliland and it was steady and you had success and you were doing pretty well. And you decide to give that up to go chase this opportunity with Marcus and Millichap. And not a lot of people would do that, especially at this stage of life you were at, right? You had a teenage son, you have obligations you've got to do, and you decide to go bet on Kevin Bledsoe. Where does that mindset come from to be able to get up and just, hey, I'm gonna go take a risk here?
Yeah, you know what and honestly, and you're right and I give a lot of credit to John. He's a great guy and he taught me a lot. And I had a tremendous career and made a tremendous run with John. But like John, he's an entrepreneur, right? He's very entrepreneurial. He's got a lot of guts, right? He figures out how to work through the tough things. Um, I watched John operate over many, many years, and I saw how he didn't let the little things bother him. And he was always like sort of focused on, looking through the front of the windshield. And I thought to myself, admired that quality in him a lot and just thought to myself, I really want to do that. I'm in my late 40s now. At the time, I was in my early 40s, and it was sort of a period in my time where I just thought it's either now or never, right? If you're going to bet on yourself, go do it. Hey, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like I fail, I go out of business. Oh well, I'll go find another job somewhere, right? I can find a W-2. I think my resume's long enough, and I think that my name means enough in this business that I can, land another job. So it was sort of like now or never. I kind of had to do it, and I didn't know what that is. I thought I might fail. I thought I might get out and sell 2 or 3 properties and have to call it quits and run out of money, right? But here we are. The lights are still on. We're still doing well. We got some really awesome agents on this team with Andreas Macris, Jared Hauk, Bill Miller just joined us recently. Max Meda. We have a great marketing team behind us. We have amazing analysts and great graphic designers that that support us as well. So I'm actually really shocked, to be honest with you. I heard Alyssa tell me one time when she started Sam. She said, I asked her, I said, hey, were you scared to start this? And she goes, yeah, I thought I was going to stink at it. I thought I'd be a horrible business owner. We had a good laugh, and here's Alyssa. She's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly successful. And I know she's going to be on your show.
Looking forward
Maybe
to
the
it.
next week or so. Yeah, she's awesome. So just some really great people. I watched all of them do it and I thought, why not me? I can do this too. Like I can figure this out. And we've done really well. I'm proud of what we built.
I have so much more I want to ask you. I got two questions I got to fit in. We got 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure that I ask these. You just mentioned all the people that are on your team. Like you see Kevin Bledsoe, Marcus, and Millichap. It's not just Kevin Bledsoe, Marcus, and Millichap. Tell me about building. First of all, how important each of those different pieces of the puzzle are. You mentioned analysts, marketing, the different brokers that you have working under you. How important is it that each of those pieces of the team, and then how do you put that together?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of support from Marcus and Millichap. I mean, first of all, this Marcus Millichap's a really great company. Really well run from the top down, right? Even, from Assam Naji, all the way down to our regional manager, Tim Stevenson. They do a tremendous, there are so many people behind the scenes, not only helping us get a commission deposited into our bank account, which is the most important part most days, but, but, they just
I
provide,
echo that sentiment, by the way.
yeah, they just provide so much support to us. It would be so hard to duplicate this on my own, right? And like, yeah, I'm building my own business within a business. So there's a lot that I'm responsible for, but they certainly take a lot of the heavy lifting off of the table. And I just can't say enough about how great Marcus and Millichap is, right? Like Steven Weinstock has built an amazing platform with some of the best agents in the country that I think are bar none the best, the best, the best in the industry, and they just do a tremendous job supporting us. So, yeah, it is tough. Like I still have to do my own bookkeeping, right? Or I have a bookkeeper that does it for me, right? I still have to, get all my finances to my bookkeeper every month, and I still have to like support the team and train and manage and mentor and watch my marketing and make sure the marketing is going out. But I have a great marketing team with Atlas and Vale that helps us do really, really well every week. It gets our messages out there. So, this is like me just doing a shout out to everybody right now to thank them for everything over the
Yeah.
years.
That's what it's about, man. Gratitude, right? You be
Yeah, for
grateful for
sure.
the people that help make it all happen. Well, I'm going to call on the bald-headed wisdom of Kevin Bledsoe right now. As long as you've been in the industry, I want to pick your brain a little about what do you see coming in 2026 into 2027? Obviously, the last couple of years, cap rates, interest rates go up, cap rates go up a little bit, maybe not as much as we might have thought. What do you see happening with transaction velocity and valuations as we move into 2026?
Well, look, I don't know if anyone's going to believe this, Thaddeus, because it's a broker saying it, right? So the joke is always like, oh yeah, like listen to what the broker says. Yeah, we don't believe that. But no, to be completely honest, we get so much feedback from Marcus and Millichap, and there's so much research that's done. And you could literally sit there and go through our library of all the things that they put out, either behind the scenes for the agents or stuff that they put out into the general public. And I've been through a few cycles now, and I've seen the ups and downs of 2009, and this isn't that bad. Like, it's really not that bad. I mean, like, so your interest rate went to 7%. I mean, yeah, kind of stinks, but at least it wasn't, 1980, right? It would have been in the 20s, I think. Um, I was, probably 3 or 4 then, but I don't remember that. But I've been told by some of
My
the people
parents
that
bought
mentored
their
me.
house in 79 at 16% interest and it spiked from there. So yeah, it wasn't a fun time. I was just old
Yeah,
enough to know what was happening. So it got you by a
yeah,
couple of years. But to your point, right? I bought a house in 2003 and my interest rate was 5.625 and it was the lowest it had ever been in the history of the country, right? So we say 7
yeah.
and everyone's like all up in arms. This is terrible. The reality is that's pretty average for where we've been.
Yeah, we're really expecting 26 I'm sorry, 2016, 2026. We're expecting 2026 to be a much better year. We're going to get potentially another drop, another, 25-point drop at the end of this year in December. I think we're going to get another 25-point drop early next year. It's what we're anticipating at least. So interest rates have come down tremendously. We're seeing a lot more movement now. We're really starting to see the listings break loose. We're getting a lot more calls now, inbound calls. We're getting a lot more people that are inquiring. We're doing a lot more evaluations. I just really think 2026, from everybody that I've talked to, the analysts that I follow, or the economists that I follow, the stuff that Marcus and Millichap puts out, I think 2026 is going to be the year that things really start to break loose again. And my younger agents have never seen this, right? In the last 3 to 4 years, they're like,
Yeah.
hey, you keep telling me about this really great market. Like, when's it going to happen? So it's got to
Uh,
happen, Dad. Like, we're just going to will it into existence, right? It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. It's going to happen. I believe it.
Kevin, I can't believe that a half hour has gone by already. It's been such a blast talking to you. Before I let you go, I want to ask you if somebody's an investor, they're looking to buy properties. I know you guys have a bunch of active listings. They're an owner, a small owner, especially I know you're mid-Atlantic, like Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey have a really good hold on those markets. Somebody wants to reach out to Kevin Bledsoe and get information on how they can either look at your listings or maybe get you to do a BOV for them. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get me by email, get me by phone, there it is, Kevin.Bledsoe,
This,
MarcusMillichap.com.
my
Um,
guy behind the scenes does not mess around. Eric is the man. Everyone needs
he's the
someone
man.
behind the curtain taking care of everything.
Heck yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Or they can certainly reach out to any of our agents as well. Jared Hauk, Andreas Makaris, Bill Miller. We have a great team. We got Max Maida. We have a great team of people behind us that are they're all more than happy to take your inbound call if you'd like to call us direct to get some information or to learn a little bit more about getting a valuation on your property. We always appreciate inbound calls because we make a lot of outbound calls.
He's Kevin Bledsoe, broker extraordinaire. Before I go, I'm going to give one more shout out to my friends at Kiwi 2 Construction. If you are building self-storage, small bay flex, boat, and RV, reach out to Wayne Woosley and his team. You can go to kiwiconstruction.com. You can call me and I'll connect you to them. They are the leaders in steel in the storage business. Really, really appreciate them for making it possible for me to have these conversations with such great people in the industry. I don't know what happened to my screen. There we go. We got your back, Kevin. To be able to have these conversations that I know I enjoy so much, hopefully other people enjoy it even half as much as I do. Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time and coming and joining the Stories Behind the Door podcast.
Thanks, Thaddeus. I appreciate it. Have fun at the New York Self Storage Conference. Tell Cam Paxton that I said hello.
I'm gonna go have some good steak over here and say hi to Stan Bonilla and Ronna Siegel and James McLean, among other former guests of the podcast. We'll do some former guest selfies here in a minute. Very much appreciate you taking the time. Everybody, that's it for this week's episode of the Stories Behind the Door podcast. He is Kevin Bledsoe. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. We'll see you next week.